recording. Sarah runs a business called You Underwear, and You is in initials, which stands for Your Own Underwear. Sarah and I were introduced by, ironically, Sarah lives in London. I live about 50 kilometres north of London, 30 miles for those who still think in miles. Ironically, we were introduced by a lady called Bindi Height, who is based in Australia. And the irony being that we had both been guests on Bindi's incredible podcast, The Ethical Evolution, and she put us in touch. Sarah and I had a conversation, and I just wanted to be able to share Sarah's story, her business, as an interview tonight. So with no further ado, Sarah, can I ask you to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, hi. Thank you very much, Carol, and everybody that's watching this. So yeah, my name's Sarah. I founded and now run You Underwear. I'm actually in Oxford, so I'm probably even closer to you than we realised, but we have gone via Australia to make that connection.
Okay, brilliant.
So yes, I run You, which is a sustainable underwear business. I know Carol's going to get me to tell you a little bit more about that, but essentially it's about being an ethical business and providing underwear to you and I as consumers, and supporting people who don't have access to underwear as a result, because we donate 2 pairs.
Yeah, and this happened because in 2016 you went on a trip to Uganda, didn't you? And can you tell us about the trip and what happened and how your eyes got opened?
Yeah, so my background is nothing to do with fashion or manufacturing or anything that in hindsight would have been quite handy to do what I'm doing now. But as Carol said, I went to Uganda in 2016. So I was there as part of the Uganda Marathon, which is a charity sort of community experience where you volunteer in local groups, volunteer in the community, supporting local groups with different initiatives. And it's all about sport inclusion as well with the local children. And I was basically supporting a women's project there where they were making sanitary towels and nappies as a business. So it was a kind of local entrepreneurial project, making them, for the communities, and to sell as a small business. And they were really struggling. And it took us ages to work out what the actual problem was. And it turned out was a lot of the women locally didn't have any underwear to put the sanitary protection in, which just stunned me, because you just don't, we take underwear for granted. Yeah. We know about period poverty. It's a problem here. It's a problem all around the world. But the underwear part is just as important as the products themselves. And it was just such a simple thing. So they were making these amazing sanitary towels that were reusable and also made from sort of sustainable local materials. But when they didn't have any underwear, it didn't make any difference. You still can't use it. And just the impact of that, because you can imagine the kind of health, hygiene, dignity, safety, but actually the bigger impact was the lack of access to education as a result. So every month the girls get their periods, they miss 25% of their education because they can't go to school. And the difference between the girls and the boys very quickly is huge, and it carries on obviously when the women are trying to work. And it was just having such a fundamental impact on their ability to complete their education, to go to school, get those qualifications, and go on to work and get jobs and support the families and communities as a result. That, yeah, it absolutely stunned me that something that simple was having such a big impact. And that was essentially the inspiration behind the business.
And as you quite rightly say, I mean, it's something that we just take for granted. And then presumably that has a knock-on effect in terms of not just in their education, but the types of jobs that they can get and how often they can work as well while they're still menstruating.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a huge, as you say, so it's if you don't get those qualifications, I mean, we know what the importance of education is, particularly for girls, because it's really important that they kind of get a step on that ladder, I suppose, to the kind of economic independence that subsequently brings. So they tended to get lower skilled jobs, lower paid, and they were still suffering the same problems in terms of the exclusion from the workplace when they did get a job. So the same thing, once a month they would miss a week, and it was, again, that just sort of continues, and then they weren't getting the jobs in the first place because they were too much of a risk, let alone when they get pregnant and all the other, you know, sort of challenges that women face in getting jobs and that sort of thing. So yeah, it was having a fundamental impact way beyond what I'd even imagined. So.
And how did that make you feel when you found that sort of fundamental cause of the inequality? Because I can feel my stomach churning just we're talking. We've talked about this before. I've written about it after meeting you. It's making my stomach really churn.
Yeah, I mean, to be completely honest, it really pissed me off because sorry.
Please don't apologize.
It is so unfair, and it's so simple, and there's so much that women and girls around the world struggle with anyway to get decent opportunities and equality in so many different senses, that something like this that is biologically natural, not that big a deal, but just has a huge impact, was just really, really pissed me off, because it's like, it is something that we take for granted. We don't even know that it's a problem, and why is something that simple still a problem for so many millions of people? And it's just those circumstances where you see that inequality and you're brought face to face with it, just really drives you to say, hang on a minute, this is not right, this is really unfair, and I'm pissed off and I'm going to do something about it, essentially.
I love it. And sometimes anger can be such a great platform for that, can't it? In that sense of injustice, to really get your passion behind a project as well. So obviously you can't speak for the whole group of women and girls, but with what you saw and experienced, what's their attitude towards this inequality? Is it acceptance, or do they want to change it?
I think there's a real mix. I mean, it's the same anywhere. There's definitely a huge hunger to change it, especially when it's based on the basic availability of necessities like that, because I think people just realise that it is something that in theory we should collectively, globally be able to tackle. And the kind of the more significant impacts of it as well. I think underwear was sort of being increasingly wrapped into the kind of period hygiene kits that people were being given. So it was recognised, or increasingly recognised, that that was a problem and a solution. Gender equality more broadly is different in many parts of Africa than it is in the UK, and particularly in rural areas when women's roles is a bit more domestic. How much they agree with that, how much they like that, really varies. And again, it's a very personal thing as well as kind of societal and everything else. But what I really saw is there's definitely a hunger for change, because that's stuff that's just unnaturally inhibiting people and keeping them back from kind of fair opportunities. It's not about ability, it's just about basic access to stuff. And it's the women that start the businesses, it's the women that are the innovative ones in communities often. And if you educate and support women and they get jobs, they go on and look after their families and communities. You know, it's all of those kind of classic stories are exactly right. So I think they definitely they are hungry to get their education, and they're hungry to get jobs and be independent and or supporting their families in whatever circumstances. And when things like this restrict it, it pisses them off as much as it pisses us off, I suppose.
That's interesting. And do you think that's partly now generational as well, that they have more access to knowing how things are in different parts of the world, and they've got that hunger then and desire to make those changes?
Yeah, definitely. And I think once you get that comparison and you sort of see that things don't need to be like that, it makes it even harder to a degree. And I think as some things evolve, so not to say, years, generations ago, when they weren't, the periods were less of a problem, or the underwear was less of a problem, the whole thing was different. So I think that dynamic changes when they want to have the access to education, and women's roles are shifting more broadly, yet still inhibited by something like that. So I think that's where it's a growing hunger to drive to change it, is saying, we don't have the same restrictions that we had in other ways, and we are getting these opportunities, increasingly girls having that chance to go through school to universities to get a job, but it's still underwear that stops us. And that's the kind of, or other similar challenges, it's when it's that kind of thing
that's fundamental
frustration.
Exactly. So tell us, Sarah, about you came back from Uganda determined to make some changes. So tell us about You Underwear and what is your mission for the brand?
So yeah, so we make organic cotton underwear. So the basic principles, one of the things I came back with a broken leg, which meant that I could do a lot of research
Oh, I didn't know that bit, sorry.
into how you solve this. Yeah, oh god, yeah, it was an emotional trip in a number of ways, life-changing. Because I spent the next year on crutches. But it basically, once I discovered that we needed to provide underwear, because that was fundamentally the problem. People do tackle some of the sanitary protection, for example, side of it, but actually underwear is still a big gap because people just don't know. When you look into how you make underwear, cotton underwear is better for you from a hygiene perspective, but actually conventional cotton is incredibly polluting as a crop. It's one of the world's most polluting crops. It's really, really reliant on a huge amount of pesticide, fertilizers, chemicals, water, chemicals in the treatment of growing the cotton in the first place, the crop, and then in the treatment all the way through it. And it just causes so many problems. Once I discovered that, and I think it was a statistic saying Indian cotton farmers commit suicide at a rate equivalent to 1 every 30 minutes. And I was just like, oh, for God's sake, why is this still happening? We're putting so much pressure on them. The industry is putting so much pressure on them. Fashion and fast fashion and everything is just making this whole thing worse. Yeah. We have to fix this in a good way. So that's a long way of saying we use only organic cotton. So it's fully certified. It's kind of from fair trade certified manufacturers. We work with India's leading sustainable manufacturer. It's all GOTS, it's all vegan, because we really fundamentally believe that it has to be made well. If we are producing something new, we have to do it with a minimal impact, essentially, and at least have not a negative one, and ideally positive. So we kind of have that core to the business. So everything is organic, everything is sustainably sourced. We do a fairly simple kind of neutral range at the moment for men and women, just because once you're getting started, you have to start somewhere. Underwear is more complicated than you think in terms of the number of styles and options and sizes and all of that. And we wanted to be as inclusive as we could be. So we started with sizes 8 to 20. We use real models. So body positivity and body confidence is really, really important. You'll totally get that. But essentially, so much advertising, particularly aimed at women, just makes us feel worse rather than anything else about our bodies. And we fundamentally support using real models, being genuine in the bodies that we display in all their perfect imperfections. We don't airbrush anything. We want it to be normal people, just, in their underwear. We want them to be aspirational. They're nice, amazing, comfy pants. But it's about being honest and transparent in that, and kind of recognizing, again, some of the challenges of fashion. So that's the kind of core piece, the body positivity. We've got a little message inside them saying you make a difference. So when you put them on in the morning, when you're sitting on the loo, you get a little secret reminder on the inside, because it's for you, it's not for anybody else. And we also cut out all our plastic, so we don't have any single-use plastic. We sell them in little reusable bags. We're trying to minimize our waste generally. So it's about being a sustainable business in every sense, and just trying to help you and I, when we make our underwear purchases, to do it in a way that's positive, essentially. So it's inherently.
I love that. So for those people who don't know, can you just explain what GOTS, which you mentioned, GOTS?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I know what GOTS is, but for those who...
all the new terminology I've learned. So GOTS is the Global Organic Textile Standard, and it's basically a certification for organic cotton. So it's saying that this is externally, independently verified as being organic, which means no pesticides, no chemicals, right the way through. So for us, we have certified dyes as well, so that the chemicals used to color the fabric essentially isn't nasty. And it's non-genetically modified as well. Yeah,
that's fantastic.
And then vegan.
Can I just bring you back to one other point, which is about that statistic about the Indian cotton farmers? I mean, I'd heard a statistic that their average lifespan is early 40s, and a lot of that had to do with the the exposure they have to pesticides, and obviously not the same health and safety standards that we would have in the UK, or maybe in America, you know, Western countries. But the suicide rate, is that because they are being squeezed so much financially?
It's a combination of things. The financial pressure is definitely part of it.
Yeah.
Being obviously kind of mostly industrial sized agriculture and fashion manufacturing, on the back of that, the production is putting people under a huge amount of pressure. We see it at this end when we can buy t-shirts for less than, you know, the classic less than your coffee. Somebody's paying somewhere. It's not possible to make that for that amount. However, suppliers are being hugely squeezed with their costs to just bring everything down. That goes right the way back to the supply chain, and it's the farmers ultimately. The chemicals and pesticides. So I don't know if anybody's seen the Stacey Dooley, is a good place to start. Her look at cotton and it's horrible, and it causes, I think it's another 20,000 pesticide deaths a year. But it's all of those elements, and also there's some interesting dodgy tie-ups. It's the same companies that provide the chemicals that are used as the fertilizers and pesticides, as provide the anti-cancer drugs that are used to treat people when they get these illnesses. So it's just a nasty system all the way through, and the farmers are hugely on the receiving end of it, and it's just, there's no level at which it's good, essentially.
No,
and it's dried up big water courses, and you know, it just causes so many bigger problems that, again, we just don't know about and we don't see. And most people, it's purely an awareness thing, because people just, you know, it's hidden from us for obvious reasons.
Absolutely. I mean, yes, I've seen photos of the Aral Sea and stuff like that, and it just makes me want to weep, frankly, because it's just so wrong. But you and I could talk about this all night. But when you found your manufacturing partner, how easy was it to find a partner that would support a new brand, where obviously you can't guarantee quantities? You're going to be cautious, I'm sure, at first, in terms of the amount of products you bring in, although your products are evergreen. It's not like a seasonal product from that point of view. But how easy was it to find someone that would work with you?
So we were really lucky in getting an introduction to our manufacturer, because I think if we hadn't had that, we would never have been able to work with them. So they are way bigger than we are, essentially. They are, as I said, India's leading manufacturer. So they've got all of the fair trade certifications. They've got that GOTS standard. They follow SA 8000, which is all about living wages and supporting their staff and employees. They provide lunches, they educate the children, they do a huge amount, which was really, really important to us to have that sort of quality, I suppose, in the manufacturing. And they've got the visibility back through the supply chain as well. So they either own the cotton farms that produce the organic cotton, or they work with local cooperatives. So we were really, really lucky. Just an old business contact, somebody that I met through a startup weekend several years ago, talked to me about some of the problems. He told me a lot of the issues with the Indian cotton farming. And when I then sort of joined all this together, I went to him and said, could you put me in touch? Our size has pros and cons, definitely. So we are the smallest company that they work with by a long way. So they manufacture for North Face and others. So we are definitely at the bottom of that chain. We were lucky that they were prepared to do smaller minimum order quantities. So the kind of MOQ that you tend to get is in the thousands, and we got ours down much lower than that just allowed us to get started. I think they probably felt a bit sorry for me in the first, and thought I was mad when I came with them this idea about donating pairs as well. They looked at me like I was a complete, and I knew nothing about it. So I went in and asked all the stupid questions that, but what it did mean is that our runs were so small, we could tag on the back of somebody else's. So we kind of got away with it like that. Somebody would come in and run 200,000, and we would come in with 200, and nobody even knew that we were there. Almost, it was so
brilliant. It's almost like you were using up the end of
so small
of the fabrics.
The challenge on the flip side, Yeah, exactly. There's no waste, because anything they don't want just goes straight through to us.
Well, that's brilliant. That's all part of
The
the
problem is with
economy, isn't it?
exactly. Exactly.
Okay, but it does mean that sometimes you might be waiting longer, I guess, for products
Yeah.
at times.
So we've gone for the kind of slow fashion approach, which I joke
Yeah.
about, but it is, at times it's really, really, really slow.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a cultural, they don't deliver, they never say no, so they never tell me
No.
it's not coming, it just doesn't arrive. And we are definitely the first ones that get bumped.
Yeah.
If anything happens, if a bigger order comes through, it's like we're straight off the end. So we do often wait.
Yeah. Wait longer than you should do from that point of view.
But I'm still fortunate to be working, I still, yeah. And I went out there last year to see the whole manufacturing, to kind of have trust in it myself and meet the team. So at least I've got that relationship with them, which I think is really important.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Did you consider manufacturing in the UK at all?
Yeah, we did quite a lot of research into it at the time. So because it's organic cotton, and because I felt so strongly about that side of it, most organic cotton is grown in India.
Yeah.
So we would have had to import it anyway. You cannot manufacture solely in the UK. It's not possible. Yeah. So there would have been a lot more of a carbon footprint and sort of freight issue with that. Yeah. And actually, I would love to manufacture more locally, but there's
always going to be a cost issue on that, isn't there?
So just being made in Britain doesn't always guarantee that it's sweatshop free and the same standards, because we've uncovered some horrible things here as well. So we tend to put a British flag on things and think that it means it's good quality, but actually that's not a good quality in terms of supply chain and workforce, and that's not necessarily the case. So I was more keen that we get that right than just manufacture here. And there's a definite price thing, because we'd be bringing in
you'd be bringing in huge rolls of fabric as opposed to an order
as well, and then still manufacturing here. So it's something we're looking at with future ranges. And potentially manufacturing in Africa as well, because they have a lot of
unfortunately the quality of the line's going a bit at the moment. Is it your internet connection, Sarah?
I don't know. I'm not on anything else.
Okay. So tell us please about your buy one donate two policy. How does it work? And I appreciate that's part of the whole giving back element with you, with the brand, but how does it actually work?
Yeah, so we started with buy one give one, because that was a fairly simple concept to grasp from our side and for customers as well. So every pair we donate one in exchange, essentially. We thankfully got a partnership with a local business who loved what we were doing and said they would support us, and funded it effectively. So we were able to donate two. So now we stick to that, because once you've done it, I don't want to go back on it. And essentially we work with a charity called Smalls for All, who are based in Livingston, just outside Edinburgh. Yeah. And they work in the UK and in various countries in Africa, I think about 15, including Uganda, to donate underwear to local women and children who don't have access to it. So they tend to be working in rural communities, in refugee camps, in IDP camps, so internally displaced people who just don't have access to it, and also work with medical organisations such as I think it's the Freedom from Fistula Foundation and children's homes and that sort of thing. So they work very much with local partners, and we donate underwear, so literally two pairs. It's sometimes ours, it's sometimes bought here, if they're looking for something specific that we don't make. Right. But more often than not, it's actually bought locally, because they want to support the local economy. So rather than just shipping things in from here, where they can't get it, or they're working in a very remote refugee camp, then they might bring stuff in because they'd have to bring it in anyway. Yeah, absolutely. But really, they try to buy and work locally so that they are helping the economy as well as. So yeah, that's essentially how it works.
So in that case, if they're buying in locally, are you then donating financially to that, or are you actually still donating product that can be used in this country?
Both, again. So if it's, sometimes it stays. So they also work in the UK. And in that case, it's donated here directly to them, or directly to it's mostly women's refuges and homeless shelters. So we donate directly, and then it's ours. And we've been doing that more recently during the COVID crisis as well, with local homeless charities around here. But if it's flown in, or not flown in, sorry, if it's bought locally, then we support financially, in different ways. Because also, we also do things like support their website, essentially. Because I know my background is actually working more on the charity side, and I know you need somebody to pay your basic bills as well as donate the underwear, because if they don't have a website, they won't keep going. If they can't get their rubbish collected, they won't keep going. So all of those or a selection of those admin costs we also cover, because I think if they're not still operating, none of this would happen. So we help them recycle, and we pay for their website and things like that.
Wow. So all of the underwear that's donated to them, then that is all new underwear, is it? Or does that counts with the pants? But I was reading on their website that they accept gently worn, as they term it, gently worn bras as well.
So all pants, essentially, children's, women's, men's, mostly women and children, is new. So they do get a selection of donated stuff that has clearly been worn, which they recycle and work with local charities to kind of do something with. But essentially they want new underwear for that. But they do, they collect secondhand, gently worn bras of all sorts, and they go out as well, because actually bras are incredibly valuable. Those go out to Africa again. And they are a huge status symbol. They mean a huge amount to the women that get them. And they can be new. Sometimes they're new, sometimes
sometimes
they're
they can be warm,
by companies. And sometimes we've all got several in the back of our cupboards that we don't actually wear. It's over 1 million now. So we actually went up in March, just literally before we locked down, to go and help them with some of their donations and to take some up, because we actually try and match. So we do donate 2 pairs of underwear for every bra we sell, but we also try and match bras collected as well. So I'm constantly asking friends and family to give me their old bras, and we take them up there to just play our part in that. So, but they've got an amazing operation up there, and they do collect gently worn secondhand bras and distribute those as well.
Okay. And we're going to put the links to these to Sarah's website and also Smalls for All as well into the comments under the broadcast on this. So how do Smalls for All decide how to allocate stuff? What's their criteria that they use?
I mean, they work as well with local charities and organisations. So that's very much sort of Maria McNamara, who set it up and runs it. Her experience was travelling in Africa and seeing some of the challenges, and she has met and established relationships essentially with local organisations that kind of know best. And that's very much her principle, which is one of the reasons we chose to work with them as well, because my background at Oxfam and others is very much about working with local organisations on the ground, because you do not know the best about the local environment. And so they follow that principle. So they identify with the Kenyan children's homes, for example, they identify which of the individual homes have the most need, who needs what, because the same as for us, underwear is a huge range in colours and styles and stuff that gets donated. Where does it go? Where is it going to have the most impact? And how do you distribute? And also, do you give, they don't tend to give just one pair, they tend to give sort of a pack or two so that you can last for a longer period of time. And they're hugely sought after items when they get distributed. So again, it's about doing that kind of fairly. And where it's going to have the most impact. So they really, really work locally, essentially, to determine that need, and just working with local communities. And sometimes they get requests in. So when we were there, they said they needed a new shipment, 2,000 pairs of actually pants for boys, because they had an orphanage that was had taken in some boys, and they wanted to provide them with underwear as well. So sometimes they get those very specific requests,
Yeah.
and otherwise it's about explaining what they've got and trying to distribute that accordingly.
That sounds like a nightmare operation to be running. It really does.
I admire, oh my God. I mean, I've been up a couple of times and I've helped out for sort of 3 or 4 days each time, and it is amazing.
Yeah.
Maria runs it with a team of volunteers who are all incredible, but it's literally, I think they get between about 4,000 or 5,500 packages a month, up to 9,000 or 10,000 if they get some big publicity.
Yeah.
And that is literally a bag or anything of bras donated through the post. So they're getting crates and crates and crates come in every day.
Great.
We did something like 40 odd thousand that we sorted in the couple of days that we were there, and it doesn't stop. You turn around and there's a new delivery, and it's just phenomenal. I mean, as I said, when she's donated over 1 million pairs,
yeah,
that's a lot of bras to sort. They have to size them, so they go out and size it. I mean, it's just a phenomenal organization and requires a huge amount of logistical stuff to get it done. I mean, it's amazing, it's impressive, and also slightly terrifying because you literally have piles and piles and piles of bras and underwear, and and they recycle everything. They collect all the stamps, they kind of do all of it. So it's just, it's really impressive, but also daunting.
I can imagine. Yeah. So as consumers, if we've got underwear that we're planning to discard, how can we recycle, and what's acceptable to send to where?
I mean, I would recommend sending it definitely to them. So if you've got knickers, pants that are unworn and in their packets, you can send those straight up. If you've got those gently worn bras, stuff that you've grown out of, don't like the style, isn't that comfortable, which we've all got, then send them straight up to Smalls for All. So the caveat is they are closed at the moment because their warehouse is closed because of the lockdown, and they are encouraging people to try hold of their underwear for now because they don't want the deliveries aren't getting through. But otherwise, yes, please just send them up. You can package them just in a normal envelope, in a bag, in a box, send them up, collect them together and send them to them up there, and they will do everything in terms of, they will also thank you. So if you give your email address or contact details, they will get back in touch and tell you what's happened. Some people were sending up little pound coins stuck into the parcels and that sort of thing, and they often get a check. So it all makes a massive difference. But yeah, definitely, if you're having a clear out, then I would send them up to them. Obviously, encouraging people not to just chuck stuff away. So much clothing ends up in landfill. If you can repair it, then do first. But if you're not going to wear it again, then definitely donate it rather than just chucking it away.
Sure. And can I ask, has your business been impacted by the lockdown and coronavirus? And if so, how?
Lots, in many ways. So it's been very varied, to be honest, in probably the same ways it has for everybody. And that just that whole experience, it's been real roller coaster for us. So we saw the first couple of weeks, we saw a drop of about 95% in visits, in sales and inquiries. Everything had just completely stopped. Because people were just nervous generally and not quite sure of what's going on. Which is totally understandable. But my first thought then was just like, oh my God, if we've got months of this, we aren't going to make it. Essentially, we're not going to survive. Luckily, we've been able to sort of slowly ramp things up. So I had just gone full time on the business, and I've just got somebody helping me. So it was also great and also terrible timing, and suddenly us both having no other income. But it did mean we could concentrate on this and really go for it. So we've spent a huge amount of time just doing outreach work. People are really supportive of local and small businesses at the moment. So Oxford, where we're based, the council has got a listing of which businesses are open, and people are really making an effort to shop and support locally. So it's gradually getting back up. We've been doing a lot more PR and publicity and just trying to get out there and keep our presence known. So it's definitely had a huge impact. Behind the scenes, we've gone from kind of daily deliveries to a couple times a week just to keep people safe. and we've got all the distancing in. When I say our warehouse, it's my house, so it's all in boxes and boxes, but when we're sorting it, it's all with gloves, fully hygiene and health and safety. And when we go to the post office, we wear masks. You know, it's really important that we keep us and our friends and family safe more than anything. But we've definitely seen a shift. We are gradually growing that back, and actually we've had a really good month this month. There's, I think, partly a shift towards supporting local businesses and loungewear, and people want comfy underwear, and ours is really soft and nice, and our bralettes are much more comfortable. So we have seen it kind of naturally move in that direction, which has been great. The challenge now is, as sales pick up, our factory in India is closed because they've also shut down. And then a week, they were just starting to reopen, and they got hit by a cyclone. It's going to have a longer term impact on us, I think, as things shift. So as we move into Christmas, which is obviously the busiest time for us, we're running low of stock, and we don't have a way of getting some of that back in. So I think we're looking at where we can kind of pivot and manufacture different ways, or fill that gap in some way. So it's been an interesting time, but enjoying being able to focus on it a lot and have a bit more time to do that with no travel and that kind of thing.
As we're starting to come out of lockdown, and there's a lot of talk about a new normal post lockdown, isn't there? What would you like to see as part of that new normal, Sarah?
I actually think it's an amazing opportunity, and I don't know whether it's just me and us in this little sustainable bubble, thinking positively about how things are slowing down, how the big fast fashion brands, they've treated people terribly during this. They're not paying for orders that they've put in. People aren't getting paid. And I think as awareness of that increases, I'm hoping people start to shift towards looking at their consumption and their shopping habits. So we've all been stuck inside. Some people have been online shopping, but actually a lot of us haven't bought anything. And that's positive, even for us as a business. I think it's really important that we consider our purchases, that actually this whole drive, I mean, the data from Google shows that the searches have increased by about 4,500 times for sustainable living more broadly, because we're cooking more, we're buying locally, we're baking, we're getting out into the gardens and parks, and I think that connection and that slowing down has to really help. I really hope that we reconsider. I don't want to go back. Everybody's clamoring to go back to normal. I really don't want to go back to normal, because I don't think normal was working, and I think we've got an opportunity to reconsider everything and pick what we want to go back to. And it's going to be hard because the economy is, everything is going to be tough. But I think there's a perception that sustainable fashion and everything is more expensive, which it is, but that's partly because we've got so used to the super cheap kind of crappy stuff that doesn't last, that actually if we reframe that and say these are investments, and as you say, we've got it all in our wardrobes anyway. You don't need to buy a load of stuff. And I think if we can encourage that and less consumption generally, travel less, all our pollution, environmental stuff, the world is recovering while we've been locked away. And I just hope that continues and we don't go rushing back, and we're not encouraged to go rushing back to go and consume more, because
that would be a travesty, wouldn't it, of everything we've been through
across.
We've got this opportunity. Let's use it. I mean, I was really sad to read reports about pollution in China after they opened up again. I think it was in April, and they did a year-on-year comparison, April 19 to April 20, and actually the pollution levels were higher as they restarted manufacture. And I just thought, I really hope that the rest of the world just doesn't follow that. And it's going to be hard, because it means thinking differently. It will have a big impact on people's lives, will have a big impact on jobs. There's no easy answers to this, but why throw away the opportunity that we've been given? I'm totally in agreement with you, and I think there are so many people that are feeling the benefits of spending more time at home and not having commutes into that are eating up big chunks of their day as well, that allows them to do things like shopping locally, cooking more and stuff like that as well. So although I feel I've got slightly rose tinted glasses on it in some ways, I just really, really hope that the rest of the world joins us with their rose tinted glasses and we actually make things happen. So Sarah, it's been an
I completely agree.
Yeah, I know you do. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm going to pop the links, as I say, in the Facebook feed. I also want to say I fully endorse Sarah's brands, because before Sarah and I actually got talking, I actually ordered some pants from You Underwear, and I absolutely love them. They are beautiful. They arrive really promptly. The fabric feels great, and they wash really well as well. So I'm delighted with my purchase and can give a personal testimonial from that point of view. So thanks everybody if you have been watching.
I love it when people say I love your pants.
Yeah. It's great, isn't it? Thanks everybody who's been watching this live. We will follow it up obviously with any comments that have come through, because we've been recording on Zoom and haven't been able to check any comments coming through. But Sarah, if I can ask you to pop on the page tomorrow and just see whether there's any comments in there as well. Yes, we'll put the links in there as well. And once again, thanks everybody. I really, really appreciate it. That you've Sarah, you've joined us, and that we've been able to do this evening, and I'm wishing you all success for the future, because I really love what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions, so yeah, just leave us a comment. And thank you very much, Carol. It's brilliant.
Thanks.